Good morning. Tomorrow night I run a session apiece for Robert the narrator, the gentleman who designed, developed, and authored this fantastic role-playing game. Del Branham, my friend and partner in writing our own game, Dark Age of Man, and David. And so there may be others who join us, don't know yet. But I want to talk a little bit about the prep. I talked about in a video preparing parts and not planning everything. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I've prepared. Then, of course, I'll put this video up right after the actual play, and everybody can see kind of what I had outlined versus what happened, right? So, again, Peace by Robert the Narrator, fantastic game. I've got a lot of notes, so a lot of my prep starts with the thought process. It's almost like designing a game for me as I go through, well, what is it? What do I visualize? So many of these are key NPC names that might occur, page numbers where I can find information in the book, of course, a rough idea of what I have kind of a theme, the theme of what's happening, right? And then, of course, I might have flowcharts that direct me to a thing. And then I have my random seed chart, which I'll be using as I do naive narrator for their actual adventures not tied to a part. And I'll talk about what I mean by a part. Anyway, and then I've got notes in here that also bookmark certain pages, like combat pages if it could occur. Planner poisoning, because my game will start with a portal, a stone portal, portal leakage, and a portal opening. So the game will literally start Stones of Those Forgotten on the Endless Plains is how it's going to start media res, as this stone activates, pouring zombies out of it and making a call to all within 10 miles to come to it. And the characters will have to deal with that. And I created the stone. I think I actually already looked at it here. So I actually invented this monster, the planar stone monster. It's a planar portal magical construct. And so it's created like a monster, but instead of having a adventurer, warrior, etc., it's a thing. It's a level lieutenant. It does not have warfare points because it does not attack traditionally. It does not move traditionally. It is a magical construct, so it cannot suffer composure or influence attacks. But it does cause influence to try to pull people to it, to be pulled into the time portal. And this is a time, this is a temporal plane. So in his book, he defines all of these planes and says there are many planes. Well, guess what? In our session, I'm inventing a temporal plane, right? So time plane, and this is where the session is going to get juicy. Why the stone activates as a temporal plane, and who activates it, and of course what happens to time, and that's the theme of the session, right? So you say, what do you mean by theme? Well, it's time. It's going to be a time travel. And the Stones of Those Forgotten, the stone lures people to it by in their head, tricking them through illusion into believing their loved ones or their old friends are calling them, and even their dead loved ones. And so they have to face influence attacks. If they break down, they will run toward the stone and jump through the portal. Okay, it has some power abilities. It has hit points. You can destroy this thing by hacking away at it or using blasts or whatever, right, etc. So anyway, and I described the stone, what it works, and what does it do, right? It's a 10-mile radius. When it's open, it does 4 damage, endurance checks every hour of 14. This is the planar poisoning portion, and they must make resistance checks, they must resist influence attacks, and if they break down, it's called in the rules, if you lose all your composure, you break down, your character will, outside your control, will run headlong for it, to save or rescue whatever you hear, whether it's your dead mother or your long lost buddy during the wars, whatever the case may be for the player's perspective. Okay. So that's the creature I've created for the very opening scene, because the portal is commanded by a chieftain Kegda and his evil wizard who has created this Temporal Stone to try to send an army to the future, right? So when anyone who steps into the portal easily goes back to 3771. However, the stone is flawed in that that army that he sent forward in time actually gets caught in the time passage and will actually come out of a plane as planar zombies. So this army that he sent into the future, the plane, they are trapped in the passage of the portal. Ultimately, it kills them and turns them into zombies, and they begin to pour out of these portals, these stones as zombies. So the wizard makes the things, they work, but they work in such a way that it's too late for his army. It takes too long for them to pass through the temporal, right? And they will arrive as zombies. Some will arrive as barely alive warriors. They will not be capable of fighting. They're almost dead. And these could be info gatherers, right? Players could interrogate the survivors for answers. That's how they could find this out. So you say, well, how do they find all this history out? Well, they don't have to. The game will play whether they ever learn a damn thing about how the portal got there, who activated, etc. But we plant an opportunity for them to learn from some that survived, some that had great endurance, great hit points, maybe the chieftains that were sent manages to, they crawl out barely alive. They might be willing to give up answers to what the hell's going on. But here's the thing. The temporal portal works perfectly going back. So anybody who touches it or steps through it will automatically, very healthily, I mean, they'll have to endure poisoning, will come out on the other side at 377 in the world, right? So there it is. So here's the initial start. Stones of Those Forgotten, Act 1. Now, I already put them in media res how it starts. Mela is walking out into the darkness toward it. They don't know why. Mela is an old woman who has helped them on this caravan. She is married to the old man, and they have adopted a young woman and her 2 children who suffered the loss of their husband in the raiders. She detects the leak. Her body distorts and is twisted as she walks to find the leak. Why? Because it's an earth planar poisoning leak. It's an earth elemental. The stone is earth, and as it is activated, it has to change its physical reality. So the earth elemental activation changes it into a soft portal in which these guys can walk in and out of. But in doing so, when it first starts to leak, before it turns, before it activates, it creates the bone-crushing, twisted stuff. So Mela is taking damage as she notices it first, as she detects it first, and heads into the desert. By the time she'll get to the thing itself, she'll be twisted, bones broken. She is capable, they don't know this, she is capable of dispel magic. She will get 1 chance on a roll to beat a 16 to actually shut this thing off. If she fails it, she will succumb, and the stone will be active, and they'll be dealing with zombies pouring out of it, and they will have to avoid being sucked into it. Once it's active, it's a 10-mile radius. Anyone in 10 miles will begin to hear its call, and they'll have to survive to avoid being pulled to it, and they'll end up stepping back in time. Will everybody who goes through that portal. So if they shut it off, they'll all suffer poisoning, etc. Some of these zombies will have come out, maybe 1 or 2 of these guys barely alive, but they will have shut it, right, at least. And they might get this information and still be in 4100 timetable, right? Okay, so this is how Act 1 sets up. That's it. From here, it's pretty much a basic outline, right? Act 2, what happened, where are we? If they go through the portal, this is where they're at, and this is what they can learn from the soldiers, right? And this is the motivation of the evil wizard, right? Okay, that's it. So, Act 3 and Act 2 will be, where do we go from here? So, I only plan parts. So, Act 2 is just, where are you, right? Where are they? They're either in 4100 or they're in 3771, having chased the boys and Sabrina and things into that place, right? So they're either going to be here or here. If they're here, they just got to figure out how many more of these stones were activated all around the region, right? Active stones, right? Because she managed to close this one doesn't mean there aren't some others open. And then, of course, if they step through, they won't even know they're back in time until they move, until they talk to locals, and then they'll find out they're not in 4100 anymore. So then this is what's going on, where do we go? They may still learn this from any interrogations they make on people, if they manage to interrogate before they step through the portal. So this is where everything gets totally naive narrator for me, right? And then I have my RGS charts, my naive narrator charts, for both 3771 and for 4100, right? So I have RGS charts for both time periods, depending on where they go in the session. Again, this is totally and utterly non-linear, non-railroad gaming, right? So that's Act 2. Act 2 is just, where the hell are we? What's going on? What do you guys want to do? Who's hurt? Who's safe? Where are these stones? What's going on, right? Okay. Obviously, they won't even know they're in 3771 probably if they get sucked into it, or if they just dive through the portal to go after one of the boys if they jump through, etc., etc. If the stone is not shut off, it's going to stay open and affect the world for a 10-mile radius. The gist of the game is, you say, so what is the point? The point, Act 3 on, close portals. Right? Now, again, this is a one-off. I don't expect them to succeed at closing every portal, but how can they do that? They can find the source. Evil, orc, slaver, wizard, right? And his name is No Loa Lu, right? No Loa Lu is our evil wizard, right? His stats are in here somewhere. Where is he at? He's Noah Lo-Zar. No-Lo-Zar, sorry about that. Noah Lo-Zar is our evil wizard. If they find him, he's the source. End him, close portals. Very simple, right? They got to find him. But if they're back at 3771, they can do this. If they're in 4100, they've got to dispel portals, fight zombies, zombie army, right? That's it. Very simple. So Act 3, it's going to be, well, are we here? Are we here? If we're here, you'd think this is how they're going to deal with it. If they're here, they got to find the source. And again, if they're able to interrogate anyone of enemies, they could maybe learn this plan by this evil chieftain, the evil chieftain Kagda. Kagda and his warriors can be, anytime Kagda is found, he will be with 8 warrior lieutenants. There's also going to be, because they're enslaved, still some enslaved humans, there's going to be what are called the Liberators. The Liberators are run by a human named Guernsey, and Guernsey is out to kill any orcs he can find and liberate any humans. So this could be a problem for any PCs that come across the Liberators, as they're going to be dealing with a man who hates orcs. Over here, if they're humans, they'll be dealing with slavers, right? And then, of course, because they're just beginning to mine shards for currency, if they head that direction, they may run into lost miners. These are on the charts, by the way. These are just details for my random seed charts. I gotta have some details. And of course, I am featuring hyena men as they travel through the plains. Again, part of the themes is temporal change, dealing with planar poisoning, a lot of the things that are in the book. Those who have been forgotten, but one of those is going to be a period or an area in the Eastern Plains that are dominated by hyena men and a hyena man chieftain, right? And again, I'm not naming these guys because these are more like animals than they are things, right? And then I just write down some rules. Dispel magic, how does it work? Mela is capable of this. And then there's warping. They may all suffer at the hands of this plane, right? So I just put notes together. Then I began the process of saying, well, what is it? How does it all tie together? How do we start it? The very first part of the session could take 15 minutes, could take an hour, who knows, right? And then we're off and running. And again, I usually run 2 to 3 hour sessions, depending on how much time we have. The only resolution here will be as far as we get. And if they do decide to pursue this guy, they can either shut him down this way, or if they're in 4100, they can now plot a path to go to the next stone and try to shut it down or fight the zombies or whatever, or purposely pass through it, right, to get to the source, right? We'll see if they can figure those things out. Again, it's a mystery, it's a conspiracy, but it doesn't make any difference what the players learn or do, right? You never want to make your sessions, and I'm in full agreement with Robert on this. I never do just straight mysteries. I make this comment in his videos. I don't do mysteries. I don't run murder mysteries, for instance, because those kind of games are solely dependent on them finding the clues. And if they don't find them, then it's either a red herring, or I have to keep putting in front of them false leads or false prompts to get them that information, and it just feels so disingenuous, and the players know they're not actually succeeding in those types of things. So I don't run what I call murder mystery games, those kind of mysteries. But this is a mystery in that they don't know, they won't know much, and if they don't know, they can still put 2 and 2 together, or not at all, and they can pursue whatever comes up on the random seed chart, because the random seed chart creates mini stories. And this is the great little thing about using an RGS. The players are going to have the session they have no matter what I've prepared. And this is what I think GMs aren't learning, is if you plan something, the players have to go through it. That's all you give them. But if you plan a little something, but then you have what's called a random seed generator, this becomes the player's story. This becomes what they end up doing in their adventure. And it is as legit, right? And again, I want it vague. So what are the orc traders? Who are they? Are these guys slavers? Are they in 3071? If they're in 3771, these orc traders are slavers, right? They would own human slaves. If it's 4100, they're just simple orc traders, right? But how do the players deal with these orc traders? Do I present them as hostile slaver traders, or do I present them as just a pack of orc traders? And now suddenly the players are involved in whatever story happens to grow out of them running into orc traders. And you trust it. And I know there are so many people out there, so many GMs that are control freaks. And I hate to say this, but let's face it, most GMs are the guys that want to be in control. That's why they're GMs. Until they've experienced this, they don't believe that this is genuinely possible to create organic sessions that become a shared story, a shared experience for everyone at the table. And tonight I'm blending both my naive narrator tools and concepts that I've been doing with all my other games the last 8 months, and combining it with, of course, traditional prep in a Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 setup, and an overarching dilemma. Evil wizard from the past sending an army into the future. Unfortunately, the time passage to the future is broken and is creating a zombie army on the other side that he doesn't know about. I mean, he's not aware that zombies are pouring out of the portal on the other side. He thinks his armies are doing what they're supposed to do. Meanwhile, you pass into it, you get back safe and sound. But here's the thing. This is the other thing. Will the players put 2 and 2 together that if they pass back through the portals to go back to their time, that it's broken? They're going to have to endure potential death, and they'll make endurance checks and then fight through it, endurance checks. So what will happen is if they pass back through, this becomes a series of checks to see if they survive or die in the journey back. They may become planar zombies when they try to return. And I have no qualms about the game having rules. I have no qualms about my world having objective truths. And we have those objective truths, but then we also have these, I don't know, this is going to be fun, let's see how it works. But we also have subjective truths. When they travel back, they're going to suffer potentially this exact same thing, right? They're going to have to make endurance checks every hour as they slowly die. They slowly face aging and death, right? Because as they're going into the future, they're ultimately aging and dying, and they'll come out either dead or very sick, right? Which is what happened to the army. Hopefully they'll put 2 and 2 together that coming in out of the plane failed miserably, but going back in time, they won't know this part unless they get sucked in or they choose to chase one of the victims through the portal, right? So there you have it. That's the setup. Now, again, tomorrow night, Saturday night, we launch this sucker with 3 players, and again, we'll record it and we'll put it up, and then I will put this video up following, and we'll see how it turned out, right? What's great about how I do these sessions is I usually have some kind of idea or some kind of plan. I'm not totally now Dark Age of Man, we have a world with a setting and what's happening in the village around them. Then I have random seed charts and we just go. But the key is it's going to be kind of fun to see how this kind of amalgamation of traditional prep with naive narrator ends up taking the players on their adventure. It'll be kind of fun to see what happens. So, all right, and I have a second RGS chart somewhere around here. Okay, it's probably over there. I'm gonna have to get out. But anyway, I've got the first chart here, and this is the other thing too. The game starts with the prophecy meter at 9, so it's intense. If they pass through, right, time at 3771, the prophecy meter actually is going to be a 6 on the other side. But they're in a time period where there's still hostilities between humans and orcs about slavery, right? If they stay once the portals are open or have been discovered, the prophecy meter is actually going to go up 1, right? As they now realize there's stones active or being activated all over this region, and they got to find them, right? This is the stones in 4100. So what I've done is we go back in time and things are pretty normal, except they're back in time dealing with this particular evil chieftain. And then, of course, if they remain in the future, things just got more dire for the world as these temporal portals are opened and calling people to them. And zombie armies will be flooding out. And then, of course, we use this for the 4100 chart, right? I could use this for 3700 as well, because, again, we can change. These miners are currently lost miners, or they're lost miners that are just discovering shards, right? So I can toy with this to be any date, right? So, okay, thanks for watching. Goodbye.